program will begin shortly. Launch sequence. Activate. Warning, the following content is not politically correct. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the channel today, everyone. I'm Sara Higdon. I am your host. This is Transform to Freedom. And John, you are wrong. Not only am I wearing one color, I'm wearing a tank top. Oh man. God, where to start this week, right? It's been an interesting week. I've been down in the city quite a bit this week doing different things. We'll talk about a little bit of that first. Just wanted to throw this out there, and I hate to do this, but yes, the name of the stream is talking about Nikki Haley, and if you didn't really see this, it really wasn't news, but obviously it's a good title for a video. Whoever is working on her campaign, whoever's writing her tweets, they probably need to be fired for this one because, oh boy, 15 million views, 12,000 responses, and only 6,000 or almost 7,000 likes. Come on now. You had to know what this was going to do. You had to know the innuendo that you were sending here. I do love Brent Henderson's his meme game, his I guess it wouldn't be a meme game, but his deepfakes are on point. Because yeah, this is kind of what we were all thinking when we saw this. Yeah. But yeah, so that's really all I had to say about about Nikki Haley tonight, because she's still just doing her own thing. She's doing her military warmongering and yeah, lying about people, just, doing just everything. But really, I did want to start with something else tonight, and this wasn't even on the docket until like literally 10 minutes ago, and it's really something that's kind of it's been something that really pissed me off tonight. So if you haven't seen this story, this is interesting. So apparently a young female in Owasso, Oklahoma, was beaten up by three other girls in the girls' bathroom at the school. Apparently this girl was non-binary, or whatever. I don't know the whole story. What really is starting to piss me off, like, about this, the reaction to this and the use of this person's death to go after Libs of TikTok creator Chaya, because she had the audacity to call out a school. I want to say it was a teacher 2 years ago. So literally, because she even mentioned the name of this school on her account, and then this happens 2 years later, people are coming after her and using this death to now say that it was Libs of TikTok's fault for even mentioning this school's name. So literally, what they're doing is they're going to say, if you've ever if you're somebody that we don't like and you're putting out content that we don't like, and if you've ever mentioned our school, our hospital, anything that has to do with it, if you call this stuff out, the wrongdoings that we are doing, then we're just, if something bad in the future happens, it's your fault. You know, you have quote unquote blood on your hands because you had the audacity to expose us. Libs of TikTok had nothing to do with this poor girl's death. Maybe if the school actually, you know, was run well, this young girl would have been protected at school. Instead, they're more worried about, you know, all these other things, and then they are just going to now blame libs of TikTok for this. This type of thing, like it makes no sense. And the thing is this person, this Wendy, who I have pulled up here, she's supposedly a journalist. Let's see, what news organization? Oh, Fox 5, which is probably it's a local news organization in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. She puts this out there, and thinks she has no culpability. Like, this is journalistic integrity at its worst. And these people then wonder why nobody trusts journalists anymore. And I hate the word journalist. I don't use the I don't want to be considered a journalist, even though technically that's what I am in my work with the post-millennial and human events. But I don't use the word journalism. But these people are the reason why people don't trust mainstream media. Right? I honestly hope that Chaya goes out there and sues all these people. She sues these people that are out here just literally smearing and attacking her and blaming her for stuff that she's never done. These people, they don't like when you hold a mirror up. I mean, they're literally saying that she killed this girl. She didn't. She didn't. The people that the three young girls that actually beat her up are the ones that did this. There is no such thing as, you know, culpability because of your rhetoric. And literally, these people, they don't like a mirror shown in front of them, because that's all that libs of TikTok does. Takes other people's videos and or now does some more investigative stuff to where they're finding people who are doing bad things and publishing it to call out the bad people, the adults that are doing the wrong things. Right? And calling out people who are posting stuff on TikTok that are acting crazy. To blame somebody for, I mean, literally using their own logic, right? How many people, here's one. Look what happened, I mean, with their own logic, right? Because the left has pointed to, has demonized Christianity, has called, you know, Christians and all these other people anti-LGBT because they do all this stuff. All those people, who could we point to? We could point to so many people, the trans rights activists, who then are now culpable in the Nashville school shooting by the trans shooter, right? With their own logic, they are now culpable for that shooting. These people need to, they are insane. And yeah, this is, I hope she loses her job for this, because this is insane. And the article that she posted is interesting because it doesn't actually do that. Now, there are other articles where it does talk about, you know, libs of TikTok's account, and they're in the headline of the article is blaming libs of TikTok. But and then in the article, it doesn't say until the very bottom of the article that she didn't, like what they're talking about that she did with this school, it happened 2 years ago. And it has nothing to do with this student. Like, nothing. Oh, James, you want to see my shirt? I should get a Fitness Tea Company are amazing. So I'm not swearing, I'm just using my workout words. Yeah. Oh man. But so that was the first thing. I mean, that's really was pissing me off, because these people, they are insane. They will blame you for anything. If they don't like you, they will try to tie you to stuff that you have absolutely nothing to do with. They're literally saying basically that Chaya killed this person. Like, that's who these people are. Right? And another round of LGBT stuff. So I was down at the Georgia State Capitol last week. If you saw my picture on Instagram, and I posted on Twitter as well, I was down there. I didn't testify because I had already testified on SB 88 last summer. So if you don't remember that, you can go see what I said about it then. But I was down there. I was supporting so the Gays Against Groomers Georgia chapter. My friend spoke there, as well as Jeff Cleghorn. So this was a so if you didn't see, so go back onto my page, you can see Ellie's speech, who is the Georgia Gays Against Groomers Georgia chapter lead. You can see her speech, as well as my friend Skylar, who is with the Georgia Log Cabin. As well, you can see this video. I'm going to play it here. This is Jeff Cleghorn, which was all three speeches were phenomenal. But Jeff is a former attorney, used to be a LGBT rights activist in multiple of these stuff, and he mentions it a lot in this speech. So let's play this, because this is important, and this is a good bill that we're trying to get passed here in Georgia that basically prevents it puts parents back in the driver's seat of children's education, because then it forces, especially in private schools, it forces them to, like, parents have to now opt into anytime that somebody's going to talk to their children about sex and gender. So whereas public schools, that's kind of pushed still. They already have those types of things at the local Georgia school board, where again parents are in control. So here's Jeff's speech.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Jeff Cleghorn, sixth generation Georgian, live in Butts County, Army veteran, retired lawyer, and have been a gay rights activist for the last 3 decades. I served on the board of directors of Georgia Equality and Lambda Legal, and am a past president of the Stonewall Bar Association. I have long advocated for the equal dignity of gay and lesbian Georgians and Americans. SB 88 is necessary because queer, gender identity, transgender activism, and the transgender medical industry are aggressively targeting children of all ages, including inside school classrooms. This is a belief system that many people, me included, do not believe in. The gay rights movement succeeded because we changed hearts and minds, and we did it the old-fashioned way by telling the truth about our lives. And today, gays and lesbians live in every Georgia county, happy and content to love our families and be good citizens. I have long known and worked with many transgender people, and I know that they only want to live their lives in peace, free from mistreatment by anyone. And I'm glad trans Americans and Georgians now have every legal right as the rest of us, with the Supreme Court recently expanding Title VII to include workplace protections for transgender. But as a result of piggybacking transgender activism on the gay movement of yesterday, transgender activists never did the work. They skipped right over the changing hearts and minds part. Instead, they stridently declared that, quote, LGBTQ plus is now a single identity, and that some people can be both sexes at the same time, while other people are neither male nor female, and some people are born in the wrong body, and some women have a penis, and there are 58 different genders and as many pronouns. SB 88 is necessary because the former gay rights movement has been hijacked by those pushing this dishonest gender ideology on children. This is about much more than helping kids with gender dysphoria, most of whom will grow up to be gay or lesbian if left alone, according to every study ever conducted on the subject. This is about indoctrinating kids into a belief system that is not real. Tens of millions of dollars are spent each year by groups like GLSEN and the Trevor Project, specifically targeting kids with this ideology. And queer activists push this belief system that gender and sex and sexuality can mean whatever someone says they mean, and there should be no boundaries. Parents have every right to know if this stuff shows up in their child's school. No one had ever heard of a transgender child until recently, and today we see tens of thousands of young females soliciting GoFundMe donations online to amputate their healthy breasts or to have, quote, gender-affirming hysterectomies. 15 years ago, there were only 2 or 3 so-called gender clinics. Today, there are hundreds, including more than 50 pediatric. The skyrocketing thousands of % recent increase in kids claiming a trans identity is not by accident. And children are being harmed. There are more than 52,000 members of a Reddit detransitioner group, mostly young lesbians and gay men, with gut-wrenching stories of regret, sterility, loss of sexual function, early onset osteoporosis, and vaginal atrophy, as the transgender medical industry is laughing all the way to the bank. SB 88 is needed because they are proselytizing this queer sex sexuality ideology to children. Activists in schools have no business interfering with the parent-child relationship. Do not let schools teach kids to keep secrets from their parents. These are not Georgia values. Thank you.
Yeah. So like I said, I was sitting like just to the left of the screen in the front row up there, but we need to get like more bills like this passed, put it back into the hands of parents. If you remember, like I said, I spoke this last summer on this bill as well. I spoke about, you know, a lot of times the trans rights activists want to start to throw out like the suicide numbers, and they always care about children committing suicide, except for when it's because that child was not able to get the mental health care that they needed because the school kept that from their parents, and it's the parents' responsibility to get their child mental health care. And so when a school keeps, you know, that secret for a child, then it goes other, you know, then that child does what happened in Florida. You know, they attempted suicide twice in as many days. And so, which is kind of what started launching a lot of these bills, because it's not right to keep that stuff from parents. Parents need to know, and so they can get their kids the actual help that they need. Now, this bill does have a special provision. They went back and they worked with some of these other groups. And so I think there's a special provision that unless there is significant reason to assume that that parents would not be comfortable. Now, also remember that this bill only requires this up until the age of 16, because in the state of Georgia, 16 is the age of consent. Actually, if you watch my Jubilee debate, I spoke about this bill, about how there's some stuff that portion of it, see, it makes a little bit more sense, right? If you're 16, that's the age of consent in the state. You can consent to at least hearing about this type of stuff, right? But and last year we passed a bill. We passed the bill to ban actual transitions for minors here in the state. Funny enough, the senator who I told you about before, who I am now arguing, I am backing his primary opponent, and that starts this week, because he argued that puberty blockers were not fully reversible. And he argued that they were fully reversible. I argued that they aren't. He was an asshole to me. Not very good. And now I'm hearing because there's more data out there, he might be changing his tune, or it's because he's in a close runoff and he's looking at ways to, gain support again from his constituents. But either way, Senator Watson, you owe me an apology. Like you do. Sorry, you do. Senator Summers has my information, so you can get it from them. But yeah, so these are the types of bills. Now, what's interesting, obviously, again, they're out here complaining because in this hearing, they decided the committee was getting ready to vote, and they decided to only hear the testimony from 3 people. All 3 were in favor of this bill, and all 3 of them were also homosexual or bisexual as well. So they were complaining because they didn't get anybody from the other side, even though the room was filled with trans activists, like normal, because they don't have, they don't have jobs, and that is their job to be down at the Capitol, even though they're not lobbyists. And I don't think that they have a badge to be a lobbyist, but they're always down there. They always show up in numbers, even though this committee took place at 2:00 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. And I'm only able to go down there because I work on social media. So I can take that time. I can, do work from the Capitol. But they were upset about this. But what they didn't realize, what they failed to point out in all the news organizations, what they failed to point out is this was the 4th hearing. This bill went through 2 hearings last year, where they decided to table it for this year to make changes to it after hearing all of the demands from all the comments in disagreement last year. They decided to make the changes to it. And then we had a hearing this summer where I was the only person in the room that spoke in favor of this bill because and I had to force my way in there to speak. I took somebody else's spot because they didn't show up, and they weren't going to call me, even though they knew I was like right there on the list. I'm always first on the list, and they never call me. They never want me to speak. Even though I'm in favor of these bills, they don't want me to speak. So I was the only person that spoke in favor of this bill last summer, after we sat there for an hour listening to people who conflated this bill with transitioning of children, which was SB 140. Listen to parents advocate for the state to take away their right to make the decisions for their child, which is amazing. Yeah, all these parents out here like, no, you should have this. You should take this right. I don't need this right. I don't need to be able to determine what happens with my child in school. That's what they were literally saying. That's what these activists on the left, they do. It's amazing to me that so many parents are just willing to give their rights up to the state like that. So this was the 4th hearing on this. There really wasn't much changes on it. So, of course, it passed 6-3 along party lines. And it will probably easily pass the Senate. I'm going to guess it's going to pass the House, too. So we'll probably get this into law later this year. Just my feedback. But I might still have to go testify more on this later. So, yeah. This was the first time I was down on Capitol Hill this week. The second was, we'll talk about it a little bit later. Now, if y'all saw, I did a independent video. So I did a video outside of this. So I did a video outside of this, of the live stream last week, where I spoke about Tamara Pietsky, who was a whistleblower out of, let me see, where was she? Out of Washington State, because she blew the whistle. She's a therapist out of Washington State, and she was just baffled. Like I advise everybody to go read the free press, sign up for the free press, read the stories out of it. It's actually a great news site. I'm actually really loving it. Everything is kind of behind a paywall, so you do have to subscribe, but it's really good. They have the witch trials of J.K. Rowling on here too, so really good. But apparently now, since she blew the whistle, since this article came out just like a week ago, Tamara was fired from her current job. And obviously so she said they didn't tell her, what happened. So this is what she said. She said when she was hired, she agreed to do neurofeedback in addition to counseling, even though counseling is what I love. But last Thursday, she called me at 7 p.m. and told me she wanted a full-time neurofeedback practitioner. When I offered to do it full-time, she said I wasn't right for the position. The next day, she sent me an email acknowledging my resignation. I drafted a response saying that I wanted to clarify I did not resign. She hasn't responded since. So she was basically fired from her position because she, again, didn't toe the party line. And so because she's willing to speak out on this stuff, she got let go from her job, which I will say it again. She's talking about going into private practice, which is probably the best thing. I think she'll probably do pretty well here. And Tamara, if you are watching this, which I don't expect that you would be, but if anybody knows and wants to get her a message, I would love to possibly talk about hiring you as a therapist for me to talk to, because you are the type of person that I know is going to do what's right for your patients. Okay? So, I think everybody, people need to go and support people like this who are actually doing what's right and speaking out. That's why it's important that when you do speak out, you have a plan. You can be, uncancelable. You get positions where your bosses know your views and what you do and when you're going to do it. So when she did this, go to her boss and say, hey, this could cause a storm. Yeah. And this actual article actually talked about, it was connected with Jamie Reed, who was the whistleblower out of St. Louis, who same type of thing. It's a great, and she tells a great story too. Now, I do want to point out two different things, and there are links in my description where so Jamie talks about the LGBT Courage Coalition, which helps people get connected to pro bono attorneys, because the thing is, for blowing the whistle, even though it wasn't on that organization, they didn't say it was because of this article, but it would be against the law for them to fire her for blowing the whistle. There are whistleblower protections out there. So these are different types of things that Jamie had said. There's also a GoFundMe to help Tamara and her family as she looks for a new job, because she has 3 kids, I think is what she said. She's a single mother with 3 kids. So definitely go support her, support the LGBT Courage Coalition. It's a new nonprofit. They have not this is I would just read this today. Again, I saw this the other day. I read it today. I just want to highlight good people that are doing, good work out there. And so this looks like a promising organization that can help people who are, speaking out, blowing the whistle, because that's what we need. We need more medical professionals to speak out, have the courage, the bravery to speak out. Transitioning to me really isn't stunning and brave, especially when trans activists, control the narrative, they control the media. I mean, again, look what we talked about with Libs of TikTok earlier. They control all of that. And so it's not stunning and brave to come out as trans. In fact, it's just going along with the current trend as it is. But it is courageous and brave to speak out against the cult and what's happening, and the harms that are actually being placed on young people. So go support all of them. Support Tamara and Jamie and the organization of people who are doing good things out there. Thank you. But talk about whistleblowers. We're going to kind of shift a little bit of direction, but we're still talking about whistleblowers. Kind of moving into the Biden administration. How the Biden administration likes to they like to prosecute their political opponents and anybody who steps against them. And if you don't see this as just another step of that, how they're going after Trump, they're going after now the FBI has arrested the former informant who blew the whistle on Joe Biden's bribery. Joe Biden he's basically the one who said Joe Biden took bribes from the Ukraine energy company Burisma. He was arrested last Thursday at Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas. That's actually kind of ironic that it was that it's the Harry Reid Airport. They claim that he was lying when he said that Burisma executives paid Joe Biden and Hunter Biden $5 million for one and $5 million for the big guy, which really interesting about this. Okay, I don't know how they determine this, but I will say it's really interesting when in the China case, that when the Hunter, like that stuff all came out, the big guy calling, supposedly calling Joe Biden the big guy, came out in the China case, and then this guy wrote this 2 years before that had even made public, and then they made this public, and so it's it's clear that the two things of calling him the big guy, there was no way that anybody would have been able to know, like with the timeline of when that happened. And so it just makes me believe that that quite a bit more. And this guy was actually telling the truth. And I believe for a second that this is just, again, the FBI being weaponized against a whistleblower. And talking about whistleblowers, Julian Assange, shifting gears a little bit from here as well. Julian Assange is still being prosecuted, still in jail in the UK. This week is, I believe this week is potentially facing extradition to the US for the crime of doing journalism. We like to think here in the United States that we have this great First Amendment, and journalists have a job to do, but not when you are on the wrong side of corrupt politicians. Just throwing that out there because again, I mean, they're trying to get this inquiry dropped because, and Joe Biden says this guy was lying and it's been outrageous from the beginning. I don't think he's lying. There's so much, like the whole thing, like Joe Biden, when he was vice president, got the investigator fired who was investigating Hunter Biden's dealings in Burisma, corruption dealings in Burisma as well. So I think there should be enough evidence. I mean, if it looks like a duck, the rest, right? But what's really, I mean, just talking about, like I said, Julian Assange is just another example of, it's probably the most well-known example of a journalist who's under threat of being, who has been politically prosecuted for I don't even know how long he's been in prison. Ross Ulbricht is another one who is sitting in prison for creating a website. Edward Snowden, prime example. When you expose the corruption and the misdealings of the powers that be, especially in the world powers of the United States, they will then come after you. They will. You no longer have the same rights as anybody else. Again, for example, right now we're also seeing we've already seen Owen Schroyer from InfoWars serve time in jail simply for being outside of the Capitol on January 6th. We've seen people get arrested for not even being at January 6th, but seditious conspiracy to planning something about January 6th. And then we have like this, where another, actually we have a Blaze reporter who was videoing and doing his job as a reporter, was subpoenaed, had the FBI door kicked in, everything like that. And now we have another journalist in Oregon, David Medina, who was charged on January 6 charges this week. And he's expected to plead not guilty for doing the job that he's hired to do as a journalist. See, there's this little thing where if people are going into the Capitol building and breaking the law, journalists are still allowed to go in there unabated to document what is happening. Without journalists documenting what is happening, then you only get one side of the story. And that's all they want you to have. This is the problem, is they only want you to see one side of the story. They want you to think that this was a completely violent protest. They don't want you to see what actually happened inside the Capitol. Now that we do see it, we see that this whole, like, everything that's been done has been a political sham. Most people, there were some people that were violent, that yes, they should probably be charged for being violent, assaulting police officers, all of that. Get it. But for literally having the police escort them into the Capitol building, come on now. And they were the journalists who are just capturing it. Like, this is the thing. It's like, they hated Tucker Carlson for going to Russia and talking to Vladimir Putin, but that's journalism, right? You go where the story's at. You talk to world leaders as journalists, if you can, of all sides. We had people, back in the 90s, and 97, I think it was, NBC, CBS, I don't know, one of those other organizations, one of the, more mainstream organizations, actually had somebody that went and spoke with in a cave with Osama bin Laden. This was before the 9/11 attacks. But this is like, we have journalists who on the front lines wear press uniforms so that they're not, shot at, because they're there to cover what's happening. They're not, they're there to just show a video. And this also goes back to kind of the whole libs of TikTok thing from the very beginning. All you're doing is showing what other people are doing, putting out there. If you're not in there, you're not interfering with what's going on, and you're just doing your job as a journalist, then that is protected. That is protected. If you're not doing anything that breaks the law, and even if the people that you're covering are breaking the law, it's still your job as a journalist to cover it. So any of this arresting journalists who were doing their job that day, even though they may be right-leaning and agree with the people that they were covering, they were still doing their job inside the Capitol. I mean, okay, so they say that he allegedly smashed the Speaker of the House sign, but we know that they have literally gone out. They've literally gone out and just prosecuted anybody who was there. He said that it's a two-tier justice system, and he's pleading not guilty. And it really is. Like when we talked about, we know that the FBI literally took agents off of pedophile cases to go after Jan 6 people. And this was, how many, 2 years later? Come on now. Yeah, let's move to this story though. Make a hard shift. Fanni Willis. If you have not been watching, if you did not watch Thursday, the Fanni Willis case, her hearing with her and her old lover, God, that was fun. And this is actually why I was down in the city. I actually went to the court. So I was there. I was like, literally, I got stopped at the door. They filled up right before I got in to sit down and cover it. There really was no need to cover it from inside. When I realized that after watching it, and actually one of my friends who's pointed out that it's actually you can see much better on the Zoom and on the videos and stuff like that. So this was a wild ride, though. This was a wild ride. It's going to be interesting to see what comes out of this, because she was unruly. She was rude. She did not make herself look like a good person, which I gotta watch what I say, because again, I do kind of live near Fulton County. And so, I don't ever want to be, I know if I ever got arrested in Fulton County, I would not get a fair trial. Let's just say that. Again, I'm a journalist and that works for the Post Millennial, and I don't think that she would like me very much. So we all know what happens there, but this was a weird statement, and I don't know what kind of campaign finance laws that she potentially broke, but yeah, we have that. She possibly did. So here.
Whole life, when I took out a large amount of money on my first campaign, I kept some of the cash of that. Like, to tell you, I just have cash in my house. I don't have as much today.
So when I took out a large chunk of cash for my first campaign, I kept some of that. So I assume that she's saying that when she took out a bunch of money from the bank to pay for her, first campaign, but then she kept a large chunk of that. It's a really interesting statement. Really interesting. It was really funny to watch, because there was a couple times. So she said that at one point she said that she didn't want to emasculate a black man, specifically as she was trying to emasculate the white man standing in front of her. But she said, I don't want to emasculate a black man, and then later went on to call him basically a misogynist who once told her that the only place that she is women are useful to him are in the kitchen. So that seems pretty emasculating. So it was a wild ride. There was another one that I had made a video of, that she said one thing early on, and that, she doesn't go to lunch. I didn't know. I mean, I don't necessarily think I believe her that she doesn't go to lunch, but she said that they may have gone to lunch here and there, but she doesn't really do lunch because they were asking her if her security detail has ever taken Mr. Wade to lunch, or if he had ever rode with her security, if her security detail had ever driven him anywhere. And she said maybe if we ever went out to lunch. And then she said, but I don't really do lunch. And then later on in the testimony, she said over the course of the year, when she would go out to lunch with other people, they would maybe, she would pay one time, they would pay another time, and it would just end up being square at the end of the day. She didn't really keep track of it. But it's like, but didn't you say you don't do lunch? Come on now. We all know this is a sham. Her dad testified, and it seemed like when her dad testified on Friday, his whole testimony should probably be thrown out because he said that he was prepped by the lawyers and they were going to make this cash thing. He also said that he watched the testimony from Mr. Wade and his daughter the day prior, which under subpoena, that seems like that might be a issue and may be cause for expelling his entire testimony. And he was a witness for the prosecution, it's really weird. I don't know. It's technically the prosecution, I think, in this case, or the defense, the people that are against the people that are trying to keep Fanni Willis on this case. It's really, really weird, and it's really interesting. But yeah. But going back to the president now, President Biden, after a year, it's been literally a year. After a year since the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, he went back for the first time. He went to East Palestine for the first time. And as to kind of be expected, the people there didn't want him there. Actually, this person was kind of funny because he owns a trucking company. He said people were asking him if they could just block Joe Biden from coming.
I also own a trucking company, and I've had several people call me and ask me if I could block the entrance of the town so that he can't come, because it's been over a year and now he wants to come when it's election time.
Allison says he's lost tens of thousands of dollars since February 3rd after his tenants up and left for good during the vinyl chloride controlled burn. Allison had to decontaminate and renovate his abandoned units.
Yeah. So, I mean, he nails it there too, because it's obvious he's just going there on the 1-year anniversary, hasn't been there this entire time. And he went there basically because it's an election season and Ohio's in play. We know Ohio is in play. It's a big state. Typically, traditionally, I want to say ever, the person who wins Ohio has always won the presidency. You can't, it's seen as one of those states. And it's really bad because the president went there. He spoke for 6 whole minutes and then left without taking any questions. He went there for 6 whole minutes and then left. I mean, come on now. I think that's my new phrase right now, right? I need to stop saying that. Come on now. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, you'd think that he would have a whole lot more to say to people who they basically have nothing. And he's trying, and then he was basically trying to blame, Norfolk Southern, to take the blame away from the fact that he has Pete Buttigieg, who has been an awful Secretary of Transportation since he's been in office. And the only reason why he was basically that diversity hire, so he's not doing a very good job because he had no transportation background or experience. I would make a better, Secretary of Transportation than this guy. I at least have a degree in logistics and did logistics for 9.5 years. This is, I mean, it's gross. So, but this is actually they weren't happy. They were saying too little, too late.
Let's go, Brandon! Let's go, Brandon! Let's go, Brandon! Let's go!
That's the message. That's the message to Biden right there. Too little, too late. How you guys doing? There you go, guys. Out here in East Palestine, this is Joe Biden finally showing up more than a year later. And that's the message. Real simple. Too little, too late. Joe, too little, too late.
I mean, that's a small town. And they lined it. They lined that street with that small town. Good for them. Good for them, which, you know, that's a big deal when they, you know, they didn't really do much. That controlled burn was who knows how much toxins were actually put in the air and in the water in Ohio, which again is, I don't know how people in Ohio vote for Joe Biden, especially after that. But, you know, that's it seems like everybody everywhere is using the F Joe Biden slogan, right? Because President Trump puts out his golden sneakers, and I knew that these were going to be like Furbies. Okay, might be dating myself a little bit here, but they were going to be like Furbies, that they were going to sell out quick. These sneakers were going to sell out quick, and then they were going to go online and people were going to make a ton of money trying to sell them. But I don't think nobody's got them in hand yet, so I don't know how you sell them. But they're going to be, I mean, they'll probably be worth some, unless he puts out more. So unless they say, hey, these are sold out, we're going to put out more. If they put out more, then it dilutes it and they lose their value. But they sold for like $400 a piece. I'm not going to lie, I kind of dig the white ones. I wouldn't buy them, but because there's only certain places you can wear them. But those are selling for what, $200 a piece, and I mean, they're pretty sharp. I do kind of like those. Just the color scheme and everything. But the gold ones are gaudy, but they're Trump. And like, I knew that they were going to make some money, but he walked into that crowd, and this again, he knows how to crowds love Trump. So at least at their rallies, they're not saying let's go Brandon and stuff. They're actually saying the word. And there's the shoes right there. Let me see. I don't know. Oh, he pulled this young woman on stage, and this was actually kind of an amazing one too. Let me see. Where is it? Here it is.
Yes, we need him. He's a Christian. He's a good, honest man. They're after him for no reason. Go out and vote for Trump. Vote Trump. No paper. Go out and vote for Trump. He's a good man. Look at his family. All good kids. All good kids. Yes.
So, I mean, then there was the same old people online, you know, that were trying to say, with different video views, people were trying to say that he got booed as he entered the sneaker convention. But obviously, in that video, I don't hear boos. Maybe some people tried to boo, but he got quite the applause. And I think the reason, and he said this kind of in his speech too, he's trying to do this. He's trying to garner the support of young people. He's trying to make himself look hip, compared to Joe Biden. He said he's been wanting to do this for like 12 years, and they finally did it. So there you go. Got a little bit of time. Let's talk about this story real quick. Because California's at it again. This is something that this is government, and California government is so sleazy. This is the big issue. This is what we had with COVID, right? So this new bill that was just dropped after California was told that they couldn't they have to allow, like, they can't deny people being allowed to conceal carry firearms in the state if they have a permit and all this stuff. So what California decided that they were going to do is they're now going to force homeowners and renters insurance companies to ask their customers if they own, like, about their firearms, how many they own, and everything like that. And then then those insurance companies are required to report them to the government. This is a clear violation of the Second Amendment. So this is what they did with COVID and the COVID vaccines, right? The government knows that they can't actually enforce this stuff themselves. So they think that they have the authority to then go and force businesses to do this. It's like it's the whole censorship, like the whole censorship stuff, right? So they said we can't. They said we know we can't actually go in and censor these people, stop them from executing their free speech rights. But we can go and then tell the social media companies that they have to suppress this information. And most of it came with the COVID stuff. They suppressed all the COVID stuff for misinformation. We know that they're suppressing stuff for election time. Facebook literally just said this week or last week that basically Instagram's going to suck as bad for creators as Facebook does. So Instagram and Threads, they're basically going to start blocking any political content. So apparently Meta does not want to be in the political content creator game at all. But we know that those rules are going to be arbitrarily used against dissenting voices that the government doesn't like. And they will let people on the left have big platforms, even still. Though actually that was one area where Taylor Lorenz was angry about that from Meta because she moved from Twitter to when Threads started. And now her content is all going to be suppressed. So sucks to suck, I guess. But we also see that, Instagram's going to start censoring all that stuff. So it's going to suck just as bad as, if you don't know, Instagram's or Facebook's algorithms are awful for content creators. They used to be awesome. Now they're awful for content creators. Instagram's going to be the same. But this is the thing that the government tries to do. They try to work these bills and force corporations and other companies to enforce what they can't actually do. Will it work? I think that this one will actually be this will be shot down by the courts because it's a clear violation of the Second Amendment. But there has to be some sort of. This is one thing that really upsets me about politics in general is a lot of times it seems like politicians are throwing stuff at a wall, trying to get it to stick, to see what sticks. They throw stuff at the wall that, is blatantly unconstitutional, and they just hope that somebody doesn't actually challenge it. And so they are throwing stuff to see what sticks. And so this will probably get, again, shot down in the courts, but there should be some sort of, reprimand for passing so many unconstitutional bills that get shot down. I don't know what it should be. I don't know what should happen. Maybe you lose your committee assignments. I don't know. But it's not just like one person. It's the entire government. So maybe we should just shut the government down. That would be great. As I say this on this birthday of George Washington, if you didn't know, it is President's Day, which was originally designated to celebrate George Washington's birthday, which I believe is actually February 22nd. So we celebrate now all presidents, not just George Washington, but we just originally celebrated because of George Washington's birthday. But yeah. So happy Monday. I will be expecting to be here next week. I want to thank y'all for joining me. And if you haven't yet, please go click that like and subscribe button below. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Follow me across all social media platforms, and I will see you next time.